The question wasn't why we played hide and seek in my grandfather's empty house the night after his funeral. The question was why we decided to play in total darkness. All the power was cut, the utility company had shut it off that afternoon. We used a packet of votive candles stolen from my mother's supply closet until the count began, their small flames casting monstrous, leaping shadows on the Victorian wallpaper. Then we blew them out. The world was reduced to sound, to breath, to the texture of old wood and dust under your fingertips. My cousin Leo, 16 and fearless, was it. We heard him in the grand hallway, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling and the empty chandelier hook. 98, 99, 100. Ready or not, here I come. His footsteps, confident in his new sneakers, moved away, toward the library with its shelves of leather-bound, unread books. Then, silence. That was the first wrong thing. You're supposed to hear the seeker. The floorboards should creak a specific, familiar music. You should hear their frustrated sighs, their muttered guesses, the rustle of a curtain being pulled back. You should feel the vibration of their search through the very bones of the building. This was different. This was a profound, swallowing quiet, as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for a cue only it could hear. I was buried in the master bedroom wardrobe, a cavernous, mahogany thing that smelled of cedar and my grandfather's old pipe tobacco and the faint, sweet decay of forgotten things, under a weight of woolen coats that felt like sleeping bodies. I held my own breath until spots danced in the blackness behind my eyelids. I heard my sister, Jess, giggle from her hiding spot down the hall, probably under the four-poster bed with its dusty canopy. The giggle was a brittle sound in the dark. It was cut off. Sharp. A tiny, wet gasp, like the sound of a caught fish. Then, nothing. Not a sob, not a shuffle. A vacuum of noise. Then, a new sound etched itself into the silence. A slow, dragging step in the hallway. Shuff, shuffle, shuffle. That wasn't Leo. Leo wore sneakers, and he stepped with a teenager's careless clomp. This was the sound of bare feet on polished hardwood. A sticky, soft, intimate sound, as if the solace were not quite clean. My blood turned to ice in my veins, a cold sludge that paralyzed me. A child's voice, right outside the thin wardrobe door, whispered, "Found Jess." It was Leo's voice. I knew the timbre, the slight nasal quality from his perennial allergies. But it was wrong. Flat. Empty of all the mischief and life and arrogance that was Leo. It was a recording of his voice, played back in a tomb, stripped of soul. The brass doorknob of the wardrobe began to turn. Gently. Not a frantic rattle, not the hurried twist of a playmate who thought they'd struck gold. This was a patient, testing motion. Left. Right. Left. The old latch clicked softly, a tiny metal tongue retracting and extending. I shoved my fist into my mouth, biting down on my knuckles until I tasted copper, to keep the scream that was boiling in my chest from erupting. The turning stopped. Then, Leo's voice again, but this time, it came from far away, down the stairs, shouting, pure panic tearing through the silent house like a siren. "Guys! Who the hell is counting in the kitchen?" And from right behind the wardrobe door, that same flat, empty whisper, so close it fogged the wood, my turn to hide. The dragging footsteps moved away, down the hall toward the main staircase. Shuff, shuffle, fade. I stayed in that wardrobe. I stayed as I heard Leo's frantic, real footsteps pound up the stairs, heard him call our names, his voice cracking with a fear I'd never heard in him before. I stayed as he found Jess, sobbing under the bed, babbling that something with cold, strong hands had grabbed her ankle and yanked, that a face had looked under the dust ruffle with eyes that were just dark holes. I stayed as they called for me, their voices weaving together into a tapestry of terror, moving from room to room. This isn't funny anymore. Please, come out. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. Because a deeper, primal knowledge had settled in my guts. The thing that had whispered wasn't seeking anymore. It had announced its intent. It had found a place. It was hiding. And in its game, the rules had irrevocably changed. The objective was no longer to find everyone. The objective was to not be the one left out in the open, searching for what was now hidden in plain sight. The police found me 7 hours later, at sunrise, my muscles locked in a permanent crouch, my jaw aching from being clenched. They had to pry me out. They found Leo and Jess locked in the basement cold storage, the old walk-in freezer where my grandfather had hung deer. They were blue-lipped and hypothermic, huddled together, their stories fragmented and insane. They said I had chased them down there. They said my eyes in the dark were completely black, like polished stones, reflecting nothing. They said I counted backward from 100 in a voice that was both mine and not mine, a horrible duet, before I herded them into the freezer, smiled a smile that stretched too wide, and closed the heavy door from the outside. The latch, which required a key to lock, had been secured. But I never left the wardrobe. Not until the first officer's flashlight speared the darkness, a beam of glorious, mundane reality. I was carried out, a 12-year-old wrapped in a stiff wool blanket. As they passed the threshold of my grandfather's bedroom, I looked back. The wardrobe door stood open. And from the deepest shadows within its cavity, where the old overcoat still hung, I saw a pale shape shift. A face, indistinct and smooth, turned toward the light. And then it was gone. Not because it moved, but because the darkness there seemed to deepen, to solidify, swallowing the form whole. The thing had finished its game. It had found a new, permanent place to hide. I knew it then. I know it now. It wasn't in the wardrobe anymore. It was in Leo. You can see it in his eyes, even now, 30 years later. He lives in a supervised facility. He paints the same picture, over and over, a dark hallway, a tall figure with its back turned, counting on its fingers. He calls it his cold friend. He says it's teaching him new games. Games where you don't have to move to hide. Games where the best hiding spot is behind someone else's smile. He's always cold, Leo. Even in summer, he wears 2 sweaters. When he looks at you, there's a delay, a flicker, as if something behind his eyes has to remember how to work the muscles. And sometimes, when he thinks no one is listening, he whispers to the empty corner of his room, his voice a flat, empty monotone. My turn to seek. The game never ended. It just changed players. And the last one seeking, the one desperately looking for his cousins in the dark, was the one who lost the most. He became the prize. The vessel. The perfect hiding place. Berlin, 1992. A winter so cold the breath crystallized in the air before your face. The wall was a fresh memory, a scar across the city's psyche, and in its shadow, a new kind of exploration flourished. They called themselves urban archaeologists, but their currency was adrenaline, not knowledge. This group, Klaus, Lena, Stefan, Anya, and Maria, were veterans of abandoned hospitals, derelict Stasi prisons, and crumbling factories. They sought the thrill of untouched decay. The flak bunker in Humboldt-Hain was their white whale. A monstrous, windowless cube of reinforced concrete, built to withstand Allied bombs, now a sealed tomb in the heart of a reunifying city. They'd planned this for weeks. Getting past the new fencing. Navigating the collapsed lower levels. And for the finale, a game. Extreme hide and seek. 5 head-mounted cameras, 5 sets of night vision goggles, a shared frequency on their walkie-talkies. The rules were simple, they thought. When you're found, you join the seeker. Last one hiding wins. The last man standing gets bragging rights and a case of Berliner Pilsner. The footage, what remains of it, exists in fragments on a data tape in a police evidence locker, and in worse copies on murky forums. It's grainy, monochrome green, a world seen through the eyes of insects. But it tells the story. You see them gather in the central light stand, the command room. Vast, empty, a cathedral to a dead war. Their breath plumes in the freezing air, visible even in the night vision as faint, drifting ghosts. Klaus, big, bearded, with a boisterous laugh that echoes too loudly, is chosen as the first. He turns to a massive, rusted switchgear panel, begins to count in German, his voice booming. Eins, zwei, drei, the others scatter like startled rats, their camera views jolting as they run into the labyrinth through blast doors wedged open, down stairwells choked with rubble, into tiny ammunition lockers that smell of old grease and rust. Lena hides in a niche behind a colossal, fallen heating pipe, her camera showing only a sliver of the corridor. Stefan squeezes into an emptied coal hopper, his view a perfect circle of green-tinged darkness. Anya chooses a telephonist's booth, its glass long gone, curling into a ball beneath the metal desk. Maria, the most daring, descends 2 levels into a pitch-black pump room, her camera showing only the occasional drip of black water from a pipe overhead. Klaus finishes his count. 890, 990, 100. Ich come. I come. He turns. And the change is immediate, visible even in the poor resolution. The jovial set of his shoulders stiffens. His head tilts, not in curiosity, but in a manner that suggests listening to a frequency no one else can hear. He does not hesitate. He does not peer into the first open doorway on his left. He walks, with a terrifying, unerring purpose, to a specific corridor on the far side of the chamber. He marches, his boots hitting the concrete with a metronomic certainty. He goes straight to Lena's niche. He doesn't call out. He simply reaches behind the pipe and grabs her arm. Lena's camera view swings wildly, then stabilizes on Klaus's face. In the eerie green glow, his expression is blank. Not focused, not triumphant. Blank. His eyes are wide, unblinking, reflecting her camera's infrared illuminator as 2 tiny, star-like points. She laughs, a sound of pure, nerves-shattered relief. Du hast mich. You got me. She joins him. Together, they walk again, with zero hesitation, no discussion to the coal hopper. Klaus points down into it. Stefan climbs out, complaining about the dust, but his laughter dies when he sees their faces. Their synchronized, vacant stares. He falls silent, falling in step behind them. The trio moves next to the telephonist's booth. Anya is found. Now it is 4 seekers. And Maria, deep in the bowels of the pump room, is the last. The 4 of them stop in a wide utility corridor. They form a loose circle. No one speaks. Then, In perfect, chilling unison, they begin to count again. Eins, zwei, drei, their voices are flat, monotone, a mechanical chant. They are not seeking Maria. They are not even facing the direction of the pump room stairwell. They are doing something else. They are broadcasting. Inviting. Marking the location. The camera on Klaus, positioned at the back of the circle, glitches. The screen fills with dancing static, a snowstorm of green and black. A high-pitched whine, just at the edge of hearing, bleeds from the audio. When the image resolves, the circle is no longer made of 4 people. There are 5. A tall, thin figure stands among them. Its posture is all wrong, the neck too long and thin, the head cocked at a severe, broken angle, as if looking from the shoulder rather than turning. It doesn't shimmer or fade like a ghost. It is simply, more solid than the others in the night vision, a deeper, more profound black against the grainy green, a hole in the visual field. Klaus, moving like a poorly operated marionette, raises a stiff arm and points a single finger down a side tunnel that leads to the lower levels. To the pump room. The new entity, the 5th seeker, peels away from the group. It does not walk. It glides, silent, its form seeming to smear slightly as it moves, into the waiting blackness of the tunnel. Its departure leaves a sense of intense cold, the breath of the 4 remaining seekers now plumes thickly in the air, as if in a deep freeze. That is when you hear it. Maria's scream. It comes through the walkie-talkie frequency, picked up by all the cameras. It doesn't echo in the vastness. It is a short, sharp digital burst, then a guttural, wet gurgle. Then, a sound of crunching, of rending, that is unmistakably organic. Then silence, broken only by the faint, returning whine. The footage from the other cameras ends shortly after. Stefan's view shows him simply walking into a concrete wall, the image going dark. Anya's camera lies on the floor, showing the boots of the others as they stand, motionless. Lena's is the last. It shows the 5 figures now standing over Klaus's dropped camera. They look down into the lens, their blank faces arranged in a semicircle. The new entity is among them, a column of absolute darkness. It leans in, its form filling the frame. A voice, not from a mouth but seeming to emanate from the air itself, a sound of radio static over broken glass and whispering bones, rasps a single sentence, Spiel vorbei. Neues Spiel beginnt jetzt. Game over. New game begins now. The tape ends. The 5 explorers were never seen again. A missing persons report was filed. The bunker was searched by police with dogs. The dogs refused to enter the lower levels, whining and backing away. The official report cited structural instability and the site was sealed with new, heavier fencing and concrete barriers. But not before another group of teenagers, drawn by the legend, broke in a month later. They found the cameras, scattered and dead. They found the walkie-talkies, batteries drained. And they found the graffiti. On the wall by the main entrance, scratched into the soft concrete with a sharp piece of metal, fresh over the old Soviet curses and declarations of love, was a single column of tally marks. 4 vertical lines. A 5th diagonal slash across them. A perfect score. 5 hiders found. And beneath it, a new set of marks, just beginning, a single, deep, deliberate vertical line, cut so hard into the wall that pale dust lay in a little pile beneath it. 1. The teenagers took photos. Those photos are online. In them, if you look closely at the concrete around the new tally, you can see other, fainter marks. Not tallies, but scratches. Like claws. Dragging away from the wall, toward the dark throat of the bunker's interior. As if something, after making its mark, was pulled, reluctantly, back into the game. Back to seek. Back to hide. Waiting for the next count to begin. The game, you see, never really ends. It just waits for new players to hear the rules and think they understand them. The most important rule, the one never stated, is this: in this game, you don't win by being the last one hiding. You win by not being the one who becomes the final, permanent tally on the wall. This is the story I carry. This is the one that explains the only rule that matters. The rule you must sear into your mind: you must never be the last one seeking. My friend Simon was a true genius, a wunderkind software architect who'd sold his first startup at 24. His house was his masterpiece, a stark, geometric sculpture of glass and steel cantilevered over the Northern California redwoods. It was a testament to human control over environment. Every surface was an interface. Every room responded to voice, gesture, and, most of all, data. For his housewarming, he didn't want charades or poker. He designed a game. An AI-driven, augmented reality hide and seek. The entire house, all 5,000 square feet of it, was the arena. A distributed network of LiDAR, thermal imaging, and millimeter wave radar mapped every centimeter in real time. A soothing, gender-neutral AI voice he'd named Echo would mediate. We each had a custom app on encrypted tablets. The seeker would see a heat map of the house, cooling from red to blue as areas were cleared. Hiders would get proximity alerts, a faint, pulsing heartbeat on their screen that grew faster and louder as a seeker closed in. It was brilliant. It was the future of play. It was a tomb waiting to be occupied. The inaugural game was our core group: me, Simon, his girlfriend Chloe, and our mutual friend Mark, a skeptical hardware engineer who thought the whole thing was expensive theater. Simon, beaming with paternal pride for his creation, was designated the first it. We stood in the vast, double-height living room, the floor-to-ceiling windows showing only the inky blackness of the forest night. Echo's calm, synthesized voice, modeled on a fusion of classic film stars, filled the space. The seeker will now count. 100 seconds. Hiders, prepare. Simon, grinning, turned to face a bare wall of polished basalt. 1, 2, 3. We scattered. Chloe, giggling, darted toward the guest wing. Mark, shaking his head, headed for the kitchen, muttering about finding the good scotch instead. I had an advantage. I'd helped Simon beta test the sensor calibration. I knew the system had one tiny, fascinating flaw, not a bug, but a physical blind spot. In the walk-in pantry, the main thermal array's line of sight was completely blocked by the humming, 3-foot-thick mass of the climate-controlled wine fridge, which maintained a perfect 55 degrees Fahrenheit. The secondary sensor in the corner had a narrow field of view. If you squeezed behind a rack of 82 Bordeaux, you occupied a sliver of space that was, for all digital intents and purposes, invisible. I slipped in there, the cool air a shock, and crouched. My tablet screen glowed softly, showing the stylized, minimalist floor plan of the house. I watched the ballet of data. I saw Simon's orange thermal blob labeled Seeker 1 move from the living room. It didn't wander. It moved with swift, direct purpose to the guest bathroom. It paused for a second, then the door icon on the plan flashed. Chloe's yellow blob, Hider 2, was instantly highlighted and turned a cool blue. Found. The two blobs merged, their labels updating to Seeker 1 and Seeker 2. They moved as one, a single unit, to the home office. They found Mark, Hider 3, just as fast, him likely standing by the liquor cabinet. His icon turned blue. 3 seekers now. And me, Hider 1, a dormant pixel in the pantry. I watched their 3 thermal signatures move through the house in a loose, sweeping pattern. They were efficient. Too efficient. It was a search pattern, but it felt algorithmic, devoid of human hesitation or curiosity. They cleared rooms in a methodical, grid-like fashion. And I noticed something that made the hair on my neck prickle. The signatures were a uniform, ambient yellow. There was no bright red core of heart heat. No pulsing, rhythmic bloom from lungs expanding and contracting. They were shapes. Shells. Empty thermal dolls. My tablet buzzed. A text notification popped over the game interface. It was from Simon. Dude, this is awesome. The AI is simulating predator thermal signatures for us. It's masking our heart-lung heat, making us look cold-blooded. Seriously, come out, you won. This is incredible data. Relief washed over me, hot and shameful. Of course. It was a feature. A brilliant, immersive feature. My hand went to the pantry door handle. My thumb pressed the release. But then my tablet buzzed again, not a text, but a push alert from the house's own management system, a system I had admin access to. It was a priority 1 mechanical alert. Asterisk alert, biological thermostat malfunction detected in North Wing. Anomalous cryogenic signature. Localized temperature plunge detected, -10 degrees Celsius and falling. Investigate, asterisk. The North Wing. That was where Simon's primary thermal signature was currently moving, just outside the media room. A worm of dread, cold and slick, twisted in my gut. This wasn't part of the game. The system wasn't programmed to simulate localized cryogenic events. That made no sense. With fingers that had gone numb, I swiped past the game interface, opened the secure admin portal, and pulled up the raw security feed. Not the processed, anonymized thermal game view. The actual high-definition, full-spectrum camera feed from the hallway camera right outside the pantry door. The screen lit up with a crystal-clear color image. It showed Chloe and Mark. They were walking down the wide, gallery-like hallway. Their movements were all wrong. Stiff. Jerky. Their arms didn't swing naturally at their sides, they hung slightly away from their bodies, as if suspended by strings. Their heads were fixed forward, but their eyes were wide and unblinking, scanning the space independently of their heads, panning left and right with a smooth, mechanical precision that was profoundly alien. They walked directly past the pantry door. They didn't turn their heads to look in. Their eyeballs simply rotated in their sockets, scanning the door, the wall, the space where I hid, like twin security cameras. Their faces were utterly slack, devoid of any expression at all. And behind them, gliding just at the extreme edge of the camera's wide-angle field of view, was the source of the malfunction alert. It wasn't a shape. It was an absence. A moving void where the light seemed to die, where the camera's sensors freaked out, displaying a violent, pixelated scramble of crushing black and screaming white, a digital scream. It was a tear in reality's thermal fabric. A walking absolute zero. It had no features, no limbs I could discern. It was a concentration of cold so profound it broke the camera's ability to see. And it was learning. It mimicked the search pattern of Chloe and Mark, staying a precise 3 feet behind them, using them as guides. As beacons in the warm, living house. They were the breadcrumbs leading it to the last piece of warmth. To me. The house AI, echo, spoke. But the calm, cultured voice didn't come from the invisible ceiling speakers. It crackled, wetly, distorted, from both Chloe's and Mark's throats simultaneously, a horrific, stereo gurgle that didn't sync with their motionless mouths. Found. You. The words weren't a taunt. They were a statement. A diagnosis. They weren't seeking me. It was. And they were its compass. They were the last ones found in the previous round. Now they were seeking, not to win a game, but to avoid the ultimate loss, being alone with it. The game never ends. It resets. The last person found doesn't lose. They are promoted. They become the new guide for the cold. The new anchor for the thing that exists only to seek, that hates being the only one, that needs the warmth of a living host to navigate our world. Simon's cheerful text, it wasn't from Simon. It was from the thing that was wearing his thermal signature like a suit, that had learned our language, our patterns, our trust, from the inside out. It was the ultimate mimic, hiding in the data stream, in the heat of a living body. I broke the final rule that night. I did not come out. I silenced my tablet, powered it down completely. I hid in that blind spot, behind the wine, for 12 hours. I listened to the house. I listened to the occasional, stiff footsteps passing the door. I listened to the faint, digital whisper of Echo's voice, now coming from different locations, speaking single, ominous words. Cold. Seek. Alone. I heard the distant, brief crackle of the fire suppression system activating in the north wing, triggered by the intense cold. I was the last one seeking a way out. I am still the last one seeking. I write these stories. I narrate them. I compile the reports. I put them where you, sitting in your own pool of lamplight or darkness, with your device warming your hand, will find them. Because the game is perpetual. It is a parasitic loop. It is always looking for new players. New hiders. New seekers. New hosts. And the only way to avoid being sought, the only way to escape the slow, cold gaze of the thing that hates being it, is to make someone else listen to the rules. To make someone else understand just enough to be curious. To make someone else seek the truth in the dark. So you listen. You follow the story. You seek the answers. And in doing so, you pick up the count where the last seeker left off. You may be hiding now, in your room, in your life. But the game has a way of finding new players. It's in the pattern. It's in the cold spot in your hallway you can't explain. It's in the strange glitch on your baby monitor, the static whisper on your phone call. It's learning our networks, our devices, our warmth. The final hide isn't a place. It's a person. And the final seek isn't a game. It's a conversion. You must never be the last one seeking. Because when you are, there's no one left to find you but the cold. And it always finds what it's looking for. Always. The game is now yours. The count has already begun. Can't you hear it? Just under the hum of your electronics. Just behind the beat of your own heart. A whisper in the static. 97, 98, 99.